Hey, this is Ramon. Channel is Alpha 4. This is my Bible study. We are in Genesis chapter 32. Jacob prepares for Esau. We're going to go summary, question, then notes with relevant readings. So let's just begin. At Maharin, Jacob saw the angel of God. Jacob then sent some of his servants to announce his arrival in Edom, to Esau, by presenting himself as his brother's servant. Jacob has a plan to travel through Esau's territory unharmed. As part of this plan, Jacob divides all that is his into two divisions. Then, in fear of his brother Esau, Jacob prays to God. Jacob then portions off sections of his half of the divide to give to his brother as a gift. Afterward, once his family was safe for the night, Jacob found himself alone with a man. The two wrestled until dawn, at which point the man renamed Jacob Israel. But before the man disappeared, Jacob demanded a blessing of him and asked the man his name. The man gave a blessing but did not tell Jacob, now Israel, his name. So here are my questions. How does Jacob know Esau had become a great man? Question number 2. How does Jacob know that Edom is his brother's kingdom? And thirdly, narratively speaking, why is there no build-up to the arrival of the mysterious man? And now my notes. First, let's go with verses 1 and 2. Jacob went on his own way, and the angels of God met him. When Jacob saw them, he said, "This is the camp of God." So he named the place Mahanaim. Jacob seeing an angel recalls his own journey as well as the journeys of the other patriarchs. So, if we go back to verse 1 and the word angels, what you will see is that in the English it's translated as angels, but actually in the Hebrew it's actually translated to messengers. So that's interesting to note that change. Then we get to verse 3. By the way, we're going out of the NIV this time. Jacob sent messengers ahead of him to his brother Esau in the land of Seir, the country of Edom. Mahanaim was a Transjordan town in Gilead, and the name of the town meant two camps. In a raw translation of this chapter, you can see references to this town in verses 8 and 11 as well. This town, Mahanaim, will be important to Jewish history, as can be read about in 2 Samuel chapter 2, chapter 17, and in 1 Kings chapter 4. Let's go to verse 4. He instructed them, "This is what you are to say to my lord Esau. Your servant Jacob says, I have been staying with Laban, and have remained there until now." Then we get to verses 10 through 12. "I am unworthy of the kindness and faithfulness you have shown your servant. I had only my staff when I crossed this Jordan, but now I have become two camps. Save me, I pray, from the hand of my brother Esau, for I am afraid he will come and attack me, and also the mothers with their children. But you have said, I will surely make you prosper, and will make your descendants like the sand of the sea, which cannot be counted." We see here a formula for prayer that includes reminding God of the promise that he has made, an admission of humility by the supplicant, gratitude for the things already granted, and a petition. Then we get to verse 17 through 21. He instructed the one in the lead, "When my brother Esau meets you and asks, 'Who do you belong to, and where are you going? And who owns all these animals in front of you?' Then you are to say, 'They belong to your servant Jacob. They are a gift sent to my lord Esau, and he is coming behind us.'" In Hebrew, where in the English we read the words advance and ahead, the words are actually the word for face, Pannell. This will become more obvious in its importance later in this chapter. Then we get to verses 22 through 23. That night Jacob got up and took his 2 wives, his 2 female servants, and his 11 sons, and crossed the ford of the Jabbok. After he had sent them across the stream, he sent over all his possessions. Now, Jacob returning to the Jabbok, which is the Wadi Zarqa north bank, alone at night, makes little sense without the Talmud story that explains that he went back for some little jars that he had left behind. Now let's get to verse 24. So Jacob was left alone, and a man wrestled with him till daybreak. In the Eastern or Greek Orthodox tradition, it is the Son of God, Christ Jesus, who wrestles with Jacob, represented usually by the radiating light of the sun as it engulfs or hugs Jacob, as it embraces Jacob. But this claim is based on Athanasius, who interpreted this verse in this way. To be honest, it's kind of hard to see it in the reading when you don't have a church father directing you in that direction. On the other hand, the Roman Catholic understanding of this verse is that Jacob fought with God. However, there is a Jewish midrash that says Jacob was actually wrestling with Esau's patron angel. So let's get to verse 25. When the man saw that he could not overcome him, he touched the socket of Jacob's hip, so that his hip was wrenched as he wrestled with the man. This injury is important for the later development of Jewish customs. But there's also something else going on here in the story. For the mysterious man just appears. Well, regardless of Jacob being by himself seeming incongruent or unwise, it is a literary device used to set the scene necessary to have Jacob wrestle with the divinity to get his name. Let's move on to verse 26. Then the man said, "Let me go, for it is daybreak." But Jacob replied, "I will not let you go unless you bless me." A divinity having to vanish before sunrise is a mark of the age of this story. For both the story of Jacob and the story presented in this chapter comes from antiquity, putting its origins in the pre-Israelic tradition. Now let's move on to verse 28. Then the man said, "Your name will no longer be Jacob, but Israel, because you have struggled with God and with humans and have overcome." This is a philoric etymology of the name Israel, but the actual non-philoric etymology remains unclear even to this day. A popular folk meaning to the name Israel is El rules. El is the northwestern Semitic name for the father of gods. Now let's move on to verses 29 through 30. Jacob said, "Please tell me your name." But he replied, "Why do you ask my name?" Then he blessed him there. So Jacob called the place Pannell, saying, "It is because I saw God face to face, and yet my life was spared." Interestingly, the hero in this chapter does not get off unharmed. He has to give up his pride. He has to give back to his brother the honor that he stole from him. He also gives a sizable portion of his hard-earned work as a teeth to his brother. God even permanently injures Jacob and marks him. Then God renames him, taking away any prestige that the name Jacob may have gained over the years while in exile. Another note about this story and about this particular verse is that in Hosea chapter 12 verse 5 we get a more developed version of the philoric explanation for the name Israel. There, an angel of God renames Jacob. He names him Saritha Elohim, which translated is, "You contend with divine beings." Now let's move on to the last verse of this reading, verse 31. The sun rose above him as he passed Pannell, and he was limping because of his hip. Pannell is actually a real historical town called Pannell, which was supposed to be the location of this wrestling match. Pannell means face of El. It was a capital city of the northern kingdom during the period of kings. Now that we're finished with the readings, I'd like to go back and talk a little bit about this mysterious man. He is also sometimes called the night stranger. Some philoric versions or elements in this story include the idea of a nocturnal demon protecting its river, the one that Jacob must cross, a hero having to pass a trial before being allowed to return home, and that there is power in names, and that there is power in knowing a true name. And one thing that I would add is that, to me, a great irony and lesson in this story is that Jacob, still fearing Esau's vengeance, decides to stay behind, and in doing so, ends up facing God instead. Anyway, peace, like, and subscribe. Comment down below. Share. And I hope to hear from all of you. I hope you're having a great night. Talk to y'all later.